They say people who get involved in this kind of stuff in the military and all, 5% of them are psychopaths. They love war. It isn't just the money. Yeah. They love power. They love money. And a few of them are sort of bad news psychopaths.
Like that they enjoy hurting other. I know that they like seeing how their weapons train on real people. Like they want to see how it works.
This was the article that they were arguing in that case, that some people, you see it in domestic life all the time. It just was so astounding to me when it's too common now to even be news. But somebody would be robbing a store, and somebody would be lying on the floor just trying to hide, and the hoodlum comes in. It just fills the person with bullets. I mean, that's just not.
I wanted to ask you, going back to the, you're talking about the 50s, the 60s, the 70s, World War II. I'm 37. I'm curious, with everything we're seeing in today, with political conflict, as you mentioned, with crime, was it at all like this in the 60s, 70s, and the 50s, or anything like that?
Well, I wrote something recently that what it was like in 1945, because everybody said the world's going to end tomorrow and things are very, very bad, and I agreed with that. I talk about it all the time. But then I just went over the statistics of World War I and World War II. Millions of people died. And it was very a disaster. So it's continued. But the founders made the point, and I'm a strong believer in it, that ultimately the kind of society we have depends on a prevailing attitude, both intellectually and spiritually, of a community. Because the non-aggression principle, fortunately, can be used by people in a spiritual realm or in a pragmatic zone. Just say this doesn't make any sense, and yet we continue to do it. But I think it's the nature of mankind, and I never heard discussions about nihilism. Of course, that's been discussed in the philosophy books for a long time, but nothing like it's talked about now. And I've sort of been concentrating on that because if you don't have truth, which we don't have anymore, then you have nihilists, and you're dealing with people that have no conscience. And when you understand that, then you understand the people who just shoot to kill and do all these things and that's going to cause chaos and people are going to die. That'll open the doors for true Marxism. We have to get rid of all this garbage you people are living with. So for us to devise, the perfect social state, we need to get rid of all these notions about freedom and capitalism and honest money, and that is their goal. And since they're nihilists, they don't care.
So do you think that the reason we're seeing the spike in crime is that these people are intentionally releasing criminals and making not enforcing laws because they want to destroy the system?
Well, I think that they've just lost all contact with reality. I think they are psychopathic in that sense. A psychopath has lost contact with reality, and that sort of can be a collective thing. The mob psychology. I mean, we're operating sort of with a mob psychology that people are joining this, and they have all kinds of excuses. I've been, as much as I try to think about this, getting all these corporations and so many people to go along with this lockdown. And most of them are, you think they can't be as far off as I described, but they just go along with it, and it's sort of scary. But I think the point that the founders made is they said this Constitution isn't worth much if the people are immoral and have no principles and they don't believe in truth. How can they believe in honest money if they don't have any principles? And they don't have a unit of account. They don't have a unit of account for the money. They don't have a unit of account for social matters.
Perhaps this is why they're saying 2 + 2 = 5. which was a big thing they're still pushing, to be honest.
Or
Ron,
what is a woman?
You said something
Yeah,
really.
that's it. That's a good example.
You said something really profound about the non-aggression principle in regards to spirituality. Like, I know about non-aggression principle militarily, but the idea that in a conversation you could have a non-aggression principle with another human, and that if you live like that, maybe it'll create a society where then that starts to happen.
But it happens all the time. I've made optimistic statements, and I have to be careful because it sounds too optimistic. I say, I remember growing up as a kid in the Depression, World War II. I was in grade school, high school, college, medical school, military. And I said, there's hardly anybody that I met that I thought was a real scoundrel. My neighbors have been easy to get along with, and we happen to be believers. So the people we associated with in a spiritual way, they were never a threat to us. So there were a lot. So my impression, if it was my narrow impression, but most people would say, "Yeah, but what a boring life you had," and they wouldn't accept this because life is much different, and you have to have a good time too,
Well, it's the old curse: "May you live in interesting times."
Yeah.
So maybe it's kind of good when your life is boring. You get to focus on your passions. You get to take care of your family.
Well, it's good to be forceful in your life, but not necessarily aggro. Like, there's a difference in like forcing your personality and beliefs on someone and being aggressive with it.
Well, this is the issue I see today. We have what we would refer to as the left and the right, or whatever words you want to use to describe, wokeness and freedom or whatever. One faction says lie, cheat, and steal because the only truth is power, or there is no truth but power. The other side is an amalgam of different ideologies that all tend to agree on the rights of the individual. So I think while all of us in this room may disagree on certain principles or philosophies, we mostly agree with life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. And that's where we differ with those who seek to use aggression against us or others to control them and gain power. We actually think people should be free to live their lives, et cetera, et cetera.
But I think people... the shortcomings comes from, I'll use the word conservative, but the conservative element sometimes wants to tell you exactly how you should live. But if a conservative who wants to do that accepts the principle of non-aggression, yes, he can be critical. He might want to approve it because if it happens to be somebody in your family or a friend and they're killing themselves with drugs and all that, you might try to help people. But I think that the people will respond. But the problem is that there's this momentum, and I think economics have a lot to do with it. Because things, even though there's still a lot of wealth in this country, and people think they're a lot richer than they really are because it's all on debt, and that's why bad times are coming, because it's going to get worse when they know how poor they really are.
Well, there's a couple questions I have for you. Why do you think we're seeing this explosion of homelessness in so many major cities? And why is it that they are at the same time, and I think these are related, don't get me wrong, but I'm bringing them both up. They say that it's hard to find workers, but we're also seeing this wave of unemployment, of homelessness. You'd think those two things would solve themselves.
I think it's a reflection of stupid policy, welfareism, and that means they know it. Look what happened when the COVID broke out and people wanted to take advantage of it. Everybody got checks, big checks. And they have so much money that they printed it sitting around. How are we going to spend all? So they feel like they can trust that. But the trouble is the payment comes in a different way. The taxes are very high, much higher than they really think. The liquidation of debt, the default. People keep worrying about, will the government not send me my check? Is there going to be a default? The default is rip-roaring, and it's going to get a lot worse. That means that if I owed you $100 last week and I can give it to you today, it's only worth $50. You've lost $50. And governments do that. They steal from you, and they transfer wealth, and that's where the real problem is. And people don't understand that because they say, the one statement that I've heard for so many years is the people who get into trouble as a result of stupid government, they say, the only problem I have is I don't have enough money to pay my bills. I go to the grocery store and it's $200 and I only have $100. So it's always a shortage of money. And the problem is there's too much money printed out of thin air and it doesn't have value to it. There's no unit of account. So having a unit of account in social things and economic matters, I think, are very similar.
This is how I explain it to people. I went onto Amazon and I was searching for a tablet, put it in my shopping cart, and I think it was like $470. I forgot to buy it. 2 days later or so, I go back on Amazon and there's a notice. It says, a price change for an item in your cart. I click it and it says, this item is now $600. This is the easiest way for the average person to understand how inflation is happening so rapidly. I could have bought it 2 days ago for, $150 less. Well, that means if you made a plan and said, okay, I make X dollars per hour, I have Y bills, and the tablet costs Z. That means I have to work this many hours to be able to buy this tablet at the end of the month. So you work those hours, and then by the time the end of the month comes, the tablet now costs twice as much because you weren't actually making any money. As you were working your job and saving, you were losing money.
See, free market Austrian economy is completely different than Keynesianism. Keynesianism believes in the computer. You put in the numbers and they'll tell us, print $100 here and the people will do this. That's not true. It never works out because one of the principles of Austrian economics that has helped me understand it is the artificiality of it. Is the pseudo theory that you can't measure things that way because there's a psychological factor there, and it's how bad do we want. So if we doubled the money supply in this room, we're not all going to do the same thing. You can't tell what the people will do, what their measurement will be. Some might save it, some might spend it. That's why this theory, this subjective theory of value, I think explains it. That's why it's a mishmash. That's why you can go 10 years and gold prices doesn't move, and yet they've been printing money like crazy. Then all of a sudden we have our prices going up. But that's all explainable through Austrian economics.
I did find that really interesting that the price of gold has been fairly stagnant, I think, over the past 10 years.
Is that artificial? Is it being artificially held down?
Well, there's a lot of manipulation. That's the most important price fixing that they can do because the gold eventually will measure value. No matter, they will be the unit of account. And that's the last thing that they have to cling to say that the dollar still has value. And they've been able to manipulate, ever since Roosevelt went in and took the gold in, it was $35 an ounce and all that. But I think even today, they can manipulate that price of gold. And
I'm way off. I was way wrong on that, sorry.
But they will have to, eventually there's going to be chaos from it, and that's why we would like to try to avoid it.
Yeah,
so real quick, just a correction. In January of 2001, gold was $265 an ounce. It reached a peak around September of 2011 at $1,700. It dipped down August 2015 to $1,121. And as of today, it is bouncing around near $2,000 and officially crossed to $2,018. So actually, it skyrocketed after the first economic crisis, went down a little bit, and then skyrocketed back up again with the past economic crisis. So gold is way up.
Okay, that $1,000 was 2015 or something.
Yes,
that
2016.
$1,000. When I watched that as the beginning of the current bull market in gold. Because you had bull market 35 up to 800, then you had 1,000 up to the second one. But this is the third one where it was $1,000. Now it's up to $2,000, and I think it's just the beginning. And if you look at percentages of what happens in a bull market in gold, what's the percentage going from 35 up to 800? Even though it didn't stay there, that's the movement that it had.
250% or something like that. Is it? So it's possible. It's more than that. It's possible we'll see like a 10x increase in the cost of gold, the value of gold. I don't know what you call it, cost or value. Is the same? Is the word interchangeable?
What?
Could you see gold going up by one magnitude from 2,000 to 20,000 an ounce?
Yeah, well, I think it'll go to zero. I mean, I think it won't be in trading. I mean, I think the dollar will go to zero before that. But no, yes, it will. If they've held it together longer, yeah. I think in your lifetime you'll see gold at $5,000 an ounce if they can keep it from totally crashing the economic system.
I agree. I'm looking at this chart right now, and it compares the dollar, the Dow Jones, the S&P 500, and gold. And if in the year 2000 you invested all your money in gold, it would be worth twice as much as stock in the Dow Jones or S&P 500.
Did you compare it to crypto?
If you bought Bitcoin around 2009 or whatever, it would be worth 20,000%. So
from the beginning.
From the beginning. Thanks for watching this clip from the Timcast IRL podcast. Hang out with us live Monday through Friday at 8 p.m. and become a member over at timcast.com for uncensored, members-only shows exclusive. Thanks for hanging out, and we'll see you all next time.